Hello and welcome to this Beard Clipper video. In this video I'm going to show you my build for the TCU Discord challenge for this month and last month, the theme of which was 'Tis the Season. Now Ryan didn't say which season it was left up to us, nice and open challenge, and it's been a really fun build, and seeing what other people have gotten up to has been awesome. And as always, there will be a companion video showing off all of the builds and announcing the winner, because I'm recording this before the winner has been announced, because I really want to get this out in time for Halloween, because, well, if you've seen the thumbnail you know what I've made, but watch the video and find out more about it. And please let me know in the comments below what you think. I love reading them and I do reply to every single one of them, so don't be shy. Do say hello and let me know what you think. But for now, I'll be quiet, I'll let you enjoy the video, and I'll see you again at the end. And I really do hope that you enjoy this video. So what I'm going to do for the TCU challenge, and actually also for a friendly challenge in Neil's Discord server for Real Terrain Hobbies on Patreon, is I'm going to paint up these awesome miniatures, which are pumpkin horrors and the pumpkin golem, that's the painting of these is going to be for Neil's Discord, and I'm going to build a nice display piece for them for the TCU challenge. The reason is that the theme is the same for both, so seasonal or fall, and obviously fall, autumn, pumpkins, and a little bit of a horror from Halloween is perfectly acceptable, and then seasonal, well, it's a season, isn't it? So that matches in for both. So I'll do these all as one build. I'm not going to split them off. It's only just for a bit of fun, and this is obviously going to be mainly, as you'll see when this is grouped together, this is going to be mainly underneath the TCU challenge, because that's the one that's I'm more invested in. But yeah, so what I'm going to do now is open these up. These are Reaper Legends. They're absolutely fantastic. I really love working with these models. So I'm going to open these up, clean them up, and wash them and prime them, and I will bring you along for when I come to the painting, because that's going to be a large part of this. So I'm not sure whether I'll actually run the camera through the painting, but at the very least I'll be showing you what colours I'm using. So yeah, Rot Patch the Pumpkin Golem and 3 Pumpkin Horrors are going to be coming your way. The killer psycho pumpkin monster thing is being painted downstairs. I will do an update on that when it's finished and just tell you how I painted it. But I have also been printing some stuff out. Now I bought these, they're not free sculpt. I bought these, I'll put a link to them in the description below if I remember, but they're from my manufactory, and you can find them if you search for corpse. Such great things you have to search for in this hobby. So I printed these out last night, and then I've primed them during the day today. So now what I'm going to do is start to paint them up, and these are going to be set down into the terrain piece. So probably what I should do is explain what my idea actually is, because I've not really said very much about it, mainly because I didn't really have an idea. I just knew I wanted to use those scary pumpkin things. So the idea is that the pumpkin is a killer and who is protecting his kind from us, who like to cut his friends' heads off and carve them out and put candles inside with their flickery eyes. And so what he's doing is hunting down and killing humans to do the same to them. So I'm going to do a permanent base which will have these bedded into it, and then the pumpkin monsters will be sat on that base, will be removable and will be playable with, but that will be their display base. So that's the idea, and this will be a terrain piece, so it'll be able to be used as a terrain piece. So it's going to be quite a multifaceted build. I'm really looking forward to it. So these are going to go downstairs now and get painted, and when that's all done I'll bring them all together and show you. I've just spent about 10 minutes looking for my template for the roads, which is really annoying. I've got this pot here, which is where they all are normally. It's not in there, I can't find it anywhere else. Probably, as soon as I make another one, I'll find the first one, but whatever, I'm going to make another one, because what I'm going to do is, for this piece, I'm going to make a central display piece, as I've said, but my idea is to have it so that it's also playable, and I want to make a crossroads, and that's going to be the display piece. It'll be a crossroads or a fork or a Y in the road, but I'm also going to do a couple more sections of road like this, which will have some of those dead people, some of the corpses scattered along them. So I'll be using the same technique, be using the shiny XPS, clamping it down, etc., making them the extra length the same length as this, and make the crossroads match up exactly to this. So that will be my display piece, that will be what my miniatures will sit on my shelf, but then I'll be able to put them on the table, and I'll be able to use the roads and this crossroads I'm going to do, or this Y junction, or whatever it turns out to be, as part of my game as well. So that's my idea. So I'll get that done. I'll make another template and save it properly. I'll link to how I made these as well. It's a Battle Games Middle Earth video, but I'll also bring you along for the actual main display piece. So I won't show you making the lengths. If you want to see that, go and check out the Battle Games Middle Earth video. But yeah, I'll bring you along when I'm ready to do the crossroads. So yeah, very excited. Downstairs, the painting's going well. Pretty much finished the corpses and also the miniatures. So yeah, cracking on. So my road template is gluing up and drying up, so I can make the extra roads. And what this now comes down to is splitting into two, which is going to be good fun. So you can see here, these are the miniatures that I've been painting up over the past little while. What we have is a bunch of dead people. I've got a few more downstairs that aren't quite finished, but these I've been painting up in my 20 minutes. They're really, really cool. And I've got the monsters. So the big kind of pumpkin monster and his little minions. So the split is going to be, I'm going to be basing these up. So he's going to go on a big base, and I've got these already on small bases. And then I'm going to be taking, so that's going to be one thing. And then I'm going to be taking this side, which is a cool pumpkin area, which I painted up mostly ages ago and then just kind of stopped. And I've finished that off now, which is going to be really nice. And then the dead, kind of like the corpses. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a couple of sections of road, which will have corpses on either side and maybe in the road. So that will take a few of these, and I might print some more off. I might need some more. But what I'm going to do for the display piece, which is going to be where these four will be able to sit on my shelf and look good, is I'm going to build something around this. So there's going to be the pumpkin patch will be at the back. The road will go along in front, and I might do like a stand of trees or something like that. So I'll do something quite simple in a sense, but it's going to be a really nice display, and it'll be somewhere where these can sit. I won't put holes in it because I want it to be terrain usable as well. So it's not going to be just a like a display piece where you've got holes where you sit your miniatures into it, but it will be able to have a space where these can sit when it's on the shelf. Now I'm going to fit it so that it's going to be the same depth as my normal display shelves, so about, I think it's about 30 centimeters. So it'll be a relatively large piece, maybe 25 centimeters, and it might even be able to still have the crossroads idea that I initially had. But I think, having found this, and I found this last night, it was like a whoa, okay, I forgot I had that. I think that's a really nice thing to have as a central piece for the display and for the board. So it might end up being just a road going across, or maybe a curve or something. We'll see. So I'm going to start drawing that up. I'm going to start working on the bases, and I'll bring you along for both of those, and we're going to crack on with this and get this done. I'm really energized. I'm really pleased that I've got started on this, and I really, really like these corpses that I've managed to print. They've really painted up very nicely. So I wasn't going to show you this, but I've realised this actually might be quite useful. It might be quite helpful just to show how I use these templates, and how I go about making multiple things. So what I've done is I've cut out this black thin like 5mm XPS, and I'm now clamped it down to the shelf. Now this is a shelf which the display board will be on as well, so this will also be the technique I'll use for the display board. What I've got is I've got my template, which I showed you earlier, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come along. I don't know how many I'm going to be able to fit on, but I'm basically going to draw around the template. So what we've got there is, this is the road and this is the banks. Then I'm going to leave a gap so that I can put another clamp in, and I'm going to draw another one. So it looks like I might be able to do 3, which is quite cool. So we'll draw those in. Yeah, so I can easily do 3. There we are. So just to make it easier for myself, what I do is I make a mark at where the waist is, which is there and there, and then I'll come along with some more clamps, because you can never have too many clamps, and I will put a clamp also on where the waist is. which really does help to prevent the warping and make this stay nice and safe and strong. So with that done, what I'll do is I'll come along with a 90 degree and probably should have done this before clamping, to be fair, so let's just take those clamps out of the way. Yes, I do make lots of mistakes. So I'll come along with a 90 degree and I will draw along the edge of each of these here. Very, very lightly, and only go to the end where I put a mark, because I don't want this necessarily to be completely straight. I might end up putting a little bit of a curve in, but I will always be the same width at each end, if you see what I mean. That's the idea. The other thing that you can do, if you do not want to have them completely straight, say for example on this one where I've got a little bit more space, what I could do is I could come up here and go a little bit off centre and put my mark here, here, here and here, and this will mean that when I'm drawing from this point here to there, there's going to be a little bit of a subtle bend in the road, and that can be quite nice as well. So there's two different ways you can approach this. You can either draw the line straight away across, or you can just go along with your template, put your marks in, and then have a slightly skewiffy road. So that's that, and then clamp between each one so that you can keep that bend. You can see it still lifts, so putting a clamp here and here makes a big difference. And then you can work on making the road and putting all of the things which might potentially cause warping on, and then when you cut it out, you can then shave down the edges how you wish, but you will have I will probably do the middle of the road, put the banks on, and then cut this out and then shave down the banks, but with the middle of the road done and dry, it won't warp. Anyway, that's my thinking and that's what I do. Hopefully that's been helpful. Like I say, I wasn't going to do that because I've done it a few times, but I figured it's actually worth repeating it. So yeah, that's how I go about it. I'm now going to do this, and I'm going to prepare the base for the display board, and I'll bring it back when I come to do the next step. So this is the display piece, and I've actually managed to fit another road section on the end, which is pretty cool. So what I've gone for is not quite square, but it's going to have the corners cut off here and here, and then a relatively straight edge up here. We've got the road coming in and forking, so I have managed to get that kind of crossroadsy T-junction-y kind of thing in, which I'm quite pleased about. I've made sure that that will marry up and match up with all of my roads, so I can use that on the gaming section. And there's plenty of space, as you can see, for me to place the monsters, and also to put any kind of dead bodies or whatever I want to on the board. I've also got these two bits of driftwood. Now these came from Tufts, the holiday this year, and I've been looking for an excuse to use them, and I think that this is my excuse. I'm not going to go too tall on this. I was considering putting a kind of like copse of trees with this tucked in it. I think I've gone off that idea. I want it to be a relatively low piece that doesn't really detract from it being a display piece, and also makes it quite easy to play. But these will be interesting in terms of game setting, because obviously you've got some cover, or you've got some kind of tough ground. But then you've got the road, which is easy to move around, so it gives an interesting kind of dynamic. It could be a good place for an ambush or what have you. So that's that. The next thing to do is to, and what I'm going to do is, having put a road on this board, I'm probably going to do the other board in the background and show all of my techniques just on this. So the next thing to do is to put the bank of the road on. Now on the straight sections, that's really easy. I just get myself another strip of this same material and glue it down. But for the curved section, it's not quite so easy. So I'll show you how I'm going to do that. What I'm going to do is get a small section of the that I'll need to mirror, and glue that at each side of the road. So just at the beginning, just at the join. And then in the middle, I will use different material, maybe some modelling compound in this case, and will then fill in the gaps between the two sections, which is where it needs to match up. And that means that I will be able to match my roads up, but I will not have to try to trace the contours of curved bits and get it right and what have you, which is just going to be too much of a difficulty. So I will get that done. The only thing to add at this stage is that you do need to have a wire brush if you're working with this shiny stuff. I say it all the time. I don't think it can be repeated too often. This does not glue very well. It will reject PVA glue, and well, it will appear to stick. Over time, it will separate, and then your terrain piece will fall apart. So just get a wire brush, and anywhere where you're going to be gluing, which is all over this piece as it happens, just come along and scratch it up. And just that will mean that your glue will stick. It's not a very nice sound though, so I won't do it on camera. So that's probably the first thing I'm going to do, scratch it all up. Then I will glue in 2 strips here on either side of the road, and I will glue in a small strip at each joining point on these roads. And then when that's done, I'll bring you back and show you the next step. This will probably make you chuckle. I've just watched my own video, which is where I made the original of these roads, which was actually one of the battle games of Middle-earth, as I said. To remind myself of how I did it, and I did use my polyfiller and my chocolat brown paint, so I have reminded myself. So I'm going to get that done, and I'll bring you along to show you how I do that again, to remind you if you haven't seen that video. But I thought I'd show you just how many clamps are on this section, and I've got even more on the other one, which is on the floor now. But these are all now dried, and what I've done is I've done what I said I would do, which is at each of the areas where the road is going to come on to this little kind of like Y section, I've put a little tab, and what I'll do now is fill in the road between where I roughly want it to be, and then once I've done that, then I'll probably use some modelling compounds to build up the banks between these 2 points, having beveled them down slightly so they match. But on this side, you can say I also weighted it down as well. On this side we have a standard road section, and this is what I'm about to work on now, and I'll bring you along when I've mixed my material. But you can see that we have 2 banks here which are nicely stuck down just with PVA, and what I'm now going to do is fill in the middle. So I'm going to get that all cleared and tidied. I was showing Angela, which is why these are out here. So get this all out of the way so it's not going to get into a mess, and then I will do the mix, and once I've got it all mixed and ready, I'll show you how I've done that, and we will apply it to this, and then off camera I'll do the other sections as I've said. So yeah, let's get going. This is quite a fun little thing, watching my own video and then doing this. So I've got my mix, which is polyfiller, water, a little bit of washing up liquid or dish soap just to prevent it from going off, and I've also chucked a little bit of PVA in it just to give it a little bit more flexibility. And I'm now going to do what I did not long ago on my previous video, come along with a palette knife and start to spread it out between the 2 banks like this. And then as I'm going, what I'll be doing is I'll be scoring in kind of tracks and breaking it up and what have you, just to give it a little bit more texture. And that's that. So I'll do that on this straight section, and I will also do the same thing over on the other section here, around via the around between all these little tabs, as I've said, and then I'll let that to dry overnight, or maybe even a bit longer. This does actually use quite a lot of this material, yeah, just make it look like a road and go on with it. So I'll get this done, and I'll bring you back for the next step when I've got something more to show you, which might actually be starting to base up the miniatures, which I want to do. I'm quite looking forward to that. Really enjoying this build, I'm sure you can tell. There we are, nearly done that section, so I'll carry on and do all the rest, and I'll be back shortly with another update. So I'm back a little sooner than I thought I'd be. I've done all the straight sections of roads. I've used up all of the mix that I made to do those, so that did that section there and the other 3 on the other board. And I did start to do this, but I realised that I really need to do the terrain on the other side of it to make it work better. So I'm going to mix up some modelling compound now. I'm going to shave down these edges a little bit and do the rest of the terrain, which will involve the little pumpkin garden at the very least being pressed into the modelling compound and then removed, because I'll glue that in later, and then also the 2 other sections that I've got, which is this little bit of these couple of twigs, these couple of bits of driftwood, so I'll press them in to make an impression, and then remove them and let the modelling compound go off. So I'm going to do that now. I've done it loads of times on camera. That is something I'm not going to film for this, and I'll bring you back when that's all ready, and when I've done all of the rest of the mix and we're ready to do the next step. But yeah, so yeah, modelling compound first. Let's get it done. And you can see that this has been done. I've put the filler in the middle as well. It's still dry and it's still wet, so I can't do this side yet. But pretty much the other pieces are ready to work on. So I'm going to start cut this out of the of its base here, so just cut along, and then what I'll do is I'll bevel down each of the sides, and I'll do that for the other ones as well, and then put on some sand and paint and then a bit of flock, and it's done. However, it's not done because I need to put on my dead people. So what I need to do is work out, and this is why I'm doing this clip, because the rest of it's pretty boring, but I need to work out where things are going to go. I have quite a few miniatures, quite a few dead miniatures. I have since I've showed you, I've painted up a few more, which are the dwarves. So what I'm probably going to do is put all the dwarves onto one of the lengths of the road, so that can be like kind of, that's where the dwarves fell. I've also done the giant, which is standalone. He will not be glued on anywhere, but he will just be part of scatter terrain, part of the display. So yeah, so what I'm going to do now is work out which of these dead people are going to go in which areas and how I'm going to glue them in. I have realised that I could potentially have done this slightly better by actually sticking them down and then putting or at least pressing them in while the filler was wet, so I could potentially put some in the road, and I may struggle now to actually get them to sit in nicely and not look odd, but I'll give it a go. So yes, I'll get that done, and then when I've finished arranging them and I'm starting to stick them down, I'll bring you along and show you what that's like. So I separated the 3 straight sections out, as you can see, and beveled the edges. The one which had a curve in, I realised I'd forgotten to do the actual modelling compound, so that's currently going off, and that'll be joining this process afterwards. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to paint on my scenic paint, which is basically brown paint mixed with PVA, water and some washing up liquid or dish soap, and that's going to get painted on along all of the edges, and then what that'll mean is I can then scatter on some sand, which I've got here, which I've sifted. This is just builder's sand, and then when that dries, I'll paint the scenic paint over again, and that'll be a really nice brown base for me to put some flock on. So yeah, I'll get that done. It's something I've done over and over and over again on this channel. I just need to give this paint a stir. It's sat for a little bit. I've been doing black and dry brushing recently, but I don't want to stick with this brown paint with sand because it will match the rest of the road sections that I've done. Yeah, so I'll get that glued, that done now, mixed up, get the glue, the paint ready. This is why you put the washing up liquid in it, because this hasn't been touched for weeks, and it doesn't even smell slightly, and it would do, trust me, because I did it without once, and I had to throw the whole batch away. It was horrible. So yeah, so I'll get that painted on now, and then scatter some sand on, paint over the top with the same paint once it's dry. When that goes off, I'll bring it back, show what it looks like, and we'll start doing the positioning of each of these miniatures, and doing the flocking, and then this section will be done. So I decided to come along, and I'm going to glue the different elements down now, and then once they're dried, later on this evening, hopefully, won't take long, I will then put the sand mix on the outside of this one as well, because that can all be drying at the same time, and I can then get a crack on. So I'm just going to use PVA, just going to coat the bottom of each of these things, put a little bit of PVA down in where I put the dent. And the reason I'm doing this is because then when I come along and do the sand, I can bed these things in, and they will look like they're part of the scenery rather than sitting on top of the sand, which isn't what I'd want to have. So yeah, so that's what I'm going to do, just a little bit of PVA in these dents that I made earlier, and here where the actual pumpkin garden's going to go, and I'll let that to dry while I go and do some other bits and pieces, and then I'll do the sand mix on this as well, and then we're really cracking on, and we're really cooking on classical gas, as Mark and Lard used to say. Anyone that knows that reference, leave that in the comment below, and you'll get 1,000 internet points from me. That dates me probably anyway. There we are, so that all now set up, and I'll do the sand and grout and what have you, and then we'll pretty much everything will be at the same level, which is really cool. With the rest of the terrain coming on really, really well, really enjoying that. What I'm going to come to now is basing up of these killer pumpkins. So what I've done is I've mixed up some grout with sifted sand, PVA and water. And if you're not sure how to do that, there is a video, a very short video, unusually for me, in the description of every single one of my videos. You can go and find it. And I'm going to use that to do a first covering on the base, and I'll build up on top of this. Now the reason I want this is I want these to look like they're on mud, and this is a particularly effective way of doing mud. Now, just neat grout won't work, but you do need to add some sand and some PVA and what have you to it. Otherwise it will just flake off of the base. Trust me, lots and lots of failures because of that. So yeah, I'm just going to come along very, very carefully and put this in all of the places I want it to be. And yeah, once this is done and when it's dried, what I'll do is I'll come along and I will put the flocking on the other scenic pieces. But yeah, you can see that that's going to look really, really nice like mud, and will be really effective for this these particular models. So yeah, I'll get that done and bring you back when it's dry and show you the next step. So the base texture is all done on this and on the other sections as well, all the 4 other lengths. But for this one, I did leave it clamped down, which means I still have to cut the edges off. And then what I'm going to need to do is come along with a little bit more sand and the paint just to finish those edges off. So to do that, you just come along with the knife at an angle and do that. There we are. And then, as I say, just kind of finish that off. And you can do that now, or you can do that after, right at the very end. It doesn't matter. I left this clamp because it's quite large, and I was aware that there was a potential for me warping. And because this is a display piece, I really don't want to warp. So I thought it was worth the extra work on this one to now have to finish off those edges. But as you can see, it's very, very easy to do, doesn't take very long. Now I'm going to finish those off once I've actually completed the build. That's my plan, because what I'm going to do now is get my terrain glue, which is here, and I'm using up some shop bought flocks. I've got my homemade ones, but I'm running out of that, so I'm using those up, and then I'm going to make some more of my own. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to flock the edges of the piece. I'm going to flock all the grass, and that's quite a simple process. You just get yourself a brush, put some of the watered down PVA with washing up liquid or dish soap in it, paint it on, and you can paint it all over because you don't have to flock everywhere. So just whack some on. There we are. And then what I do is I normally go with at least 2, if not 3 shades, because grass is not monochrome. And I normally start with the darkest colour. So that's what this is. And then I'll kind of sprinkle that over. As you can see, it's not a scientific process. And then what I'll do is I will sprinkle some lighter over. And quite often I will do 3 shades, as I say. I'd actually do 3 shades, but I'm only going to do 2 in this case. And then I would put a lighter shade on, and then what I do is I do a very light scattering of the darker one again, finally, just to tie it all together. And that is how I do my flocking. Like that. So I'm going to do that over all of this board, and over the edges of all of the other road sections. And when that's dried, what you do is you come along, and in the same way as we did 2 coats of the paint, we do 2 coats of the glue. So when that's dry and clear, then we'll come along and we'll paint over the entirety of the rest of it again with the scenic glue, and that will seal it down and make it hard for your table, so it won't all fall off. So yeah, going to get that done. Just a repetitive task, and yeah, we're very close to finished on these now, which is really exciting. Here we are then. The glue on the grass is still a little bit damp. I've put a very, very thick coat of PVA over the top of it, watered down PVA, and I've also sealed all the wood. But we are now at the time where we're going to start to place the figures on each of the pieces. So to do that, I'm going to use PVA again, and just put a blob of PVA on the bottom of the miniature that I'm going to put in place, and then set it in where I want it to go. And the reason I'm doing it with PVA is it's just going to mean it's a bit easier for me to move around, and if I want to move them in the future, it won't quite destroy the piece as much as if I did it with super glue. So yeah, so I'm going to do this for this piece and for all the other bits. Not quite finished yet, still working on the basing for the miniatures, and I have a little surprise one that I found a little 3D printed model that I thought would be perfect for this. So I've only just printed him, so he needs to be he needs to be painted up and everything. I haven't even got near doing that yet. So yeah, so not quite finished the project yet, but we're really close. And these pieces are now done, basically. So that's really good. These display pieces are done now with this final act. So yeah, I'll be back with the basing very shortly. The grout mix is dried and looking really good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make use of Luke's APS or Geek Gaming's fast drying basing glue and base ready mix, and also some builder's sand number 3. So let me show you how you go about doing this. I have done a video on how you use the base ready, but it was a little while ago. I can't remember if it is linked in the video description below, it might be. But what you do is you basically, we're going to cover the base, everywhere on the base where we want to have something to stick with this, and it is not a PVA. This it will get, if you get it on your hands, it's really hard to clean off because I think it's vinyl based. So just be very careful when you're using Luke's special glue. So we put a relatively generous amount on, and what I'm then going to do is I've got my heavy bucket, as you can see, of sifted sand. I call this my sand number 3. I've got multiple sieves that I use to grade my builder's sand, and this is nearly the largest that I keep, and it's just going to give a little bit more texture. So I'll scatter that on there like that, just a few, and then we're going to get, no, we're not going to be able to fit it in. Normally you would dip it right in, you laid it up, and then shake it off like so, and that is as simple as it is. And then when that's all dried, we can do a normal seal with PVA just to make sure it doesn't get knocked off. But that's how quick and easy it is to use the fast basing technique. Yeah, I will do the other 3 miniatures, the smaller ones, it'll be a bit easier, and then I'll bring you back when I've done that. I'm going to come to the finishing up, which is going to be a couple of tufts, and then painting the edge, and then those miniatures are done. Right, final detailing going on now on the actual miniatures. I've got these pumpkins, and they were from a previous project which you will remember very well. It was the Hobbit hole for Rosie, probably one of my favourite things I've ever built. And I had a few of these left over which I painted up, which I didn't fit on the build. So what I'm doing is, and I've started doing this, I've put one on the bases of the little ones just to make sure they look okay, is I'm just going to stick these down just so that they add a little bit of interest. Now what you will notice is that they are missing a little bit of paint, so I'm going to need to go and take these down and touch these up a little bit with some colour, and also they're a slightly different tone. They're much pinker than the orange, so yeah, so I'm going to just once these are dried on, I'm going to need to pop these down and get a little bit more colour on them, but yeah, that's going to be one of the additions that I'm going to put on the base of these miniatures, and I'll bring you back for the next step in a second. So the next I'm going to add to these bases, and I might not put them all of them, are these like dead grass tufts. Now I'm pretty sure that these came from Games Workshop, as it happens. I got them in a batch of a load of other stuff, and I didn't actually buy these. They came in a box of miniatures. So just to show how I go about doing this, I often will use PVA, but I've got the super glue out, so I'm just going to use that. So pop a bit of glue on your base, make sure that you have tweezers, because if you don't, then it's so easy for them to get stuck to your fingers. And there you are. My phone's going off, apologies. Anyway, I'm going to do that on all the bases, and then I think pretty much, apart from a little bit of a touch up on the colour on these pumpkins, they're done. I sent a non-glamour shot to the TCU Discord, and I can't remember who it was who said it, but they were absolutely right. They said they particularly liked the dwarf one, this one here, because of the muddy patches. And it made me realise, you know, that was a mistake. Honestly, it was a mistake. But what I should do is I should do that on the other ones. So that's what I'm going to do. All that'll be will be a blob of the brown terrain paint, and then a bit of sand over the top of it. And then when that's dried, another bit of the terrain paint over the top. And I'll just pick out a couple of areas on each of the roads, include all the other ones as well. And I think that will probably just finish it off. I know that these are very basic banks and there's not very much to them, but that's kind of deliberate. I want them to be simple. I don't want them to be overwhelming. I want it to be easy to place miniatures around. Having these models on, I mean, even this, you can stand someone on the dead body if you want to. Having these seated ones is already enough of a of a block to gameability and playability. So yeah, so I'm going to leave the borders pretty basic, not going to do any static grass and anything else. But yeah, let's just get some muddy puddles on. Rosie will love jumping in them, and then we'll wrap that up. So thanks, can't remember who it was, I'll try to credit you properly, yeah, really cool to get that sort of feedback, really useful, it's a really good community. Well, there we are. What a fun build that was, and what a great result. Really pleased with it. It's playable, but it's also a display piece, and it is now on my shelf, the display part. Outside, I'm of room 13, and I really enjoy looking at it every time I walk past. We'll get it into a game as well at some point, I'm absolutely sure. The links for all of the 3D files are in the description below. I should have said that in the intro. So if you want to print any of them out, they're there. Most of them are free, some of them are paid for, but they're all pretty good. You can see the results I managed to get. And yeah, I think probably the painting was the thing that surprised me the most. Those dead bodies really painted up nicely. So yeah, good fun. Really good fun build. So let me know what you think in the comments below. I always reply to every single one of them. I love reading them all, so don't be shy. Thank you so much for watching, particularly if you did manage to get this far. And as always, please stay healthy, stay safe, and stay well.